So I saw in the news this morning where they're looking at bringing AI in to monitor your movements so that you can be tracked, see how close you are to each other when you're going down the street, when you're at work. And if we get the social credit system come in, which they've already put the legislation through for, you'll be able to get home and find your social credit score has dropped down. And if you went to work on a train, you might not be able to come home on the train. Yeah, you might not be able to get home on the train because your social credit score will have gone down and you won't qualify anymore. So I've been helping a lot of people as best I can with trying to keep their jobs. Now, if you haven't experienced it yourself, you've got to be aware that we've got nurses, we've got paramedics, we've got teachers. We don't have doctors in this category because doctors are exempt from being vaccinated. They can keep their jobs even though they're on the front line. If you have a look at the Public Health Act 2010, they don't have to comply with mandatory vaccinations. So for some reason, nurses must, and I've been talking to lots of nurses who've lost their jobs because they won't take the jab because of what they see is happening in the system, but also because they believe that your health is your choice and you're not subject to the whims of a faux government. And when I say faux, it's a pretend government. This government is not consistent with the Constitution. It's not even consistent with their own legislation that they write. Now, for people who aren't aware, New South Wales, as a state government, must be consistent with the Commonwealth. And with the Commonwealth, you've got your Constitution. You've got a number of elements in there. The Constitution isn't there to control you. It's there to control the government. And that's what people must remember. Section 5123A of the Constitution, look it up. Section 5123A makes it so they cannot enforce conscription. You've got the Biosecurity Act 2015. Again, you can't enforce conscription. If you're going to be subject to a public health order, even under the Public Health Act 2010, it's required that you receive a notice from a public health officer to you in your name, and it's signed. And it tells you what's wrong and why you're going to be locked up. And I'll guarantee you nobody here is in receipt of one. But if you watch the television, if you read the media, you listen to the radio, you'll think that there's a whole lot of laws in place that aren't laws. They're orders, they're directives. That's how you know they're not laws. And when it gets back down to the legislation, even our acts and statutes are not laws. They are given the force of law, and you've experienced the force of law. I'm sure most of you have experienced the force of law. We've seen the force of law in Melbourne. We've seen the force of law firing 40mm rubber pellets into people at point blank range. And you'll notice if you see the pictures of the people that are damaged that they're aiming for your head. So these are supposed to be non-lethal, yet they will break bones and they will separate the tissues in your body. Now, I'm not here to bring a negative to the day, but one thing I am trying to bring here is the reality. We've got a lot of love here. We've got a lot of people in support of each other. Unfortunately, the government doesn't have that same motivation. It doesn't have that same feeling. And where you think you may have been through the worst, this is the beginning. This is the beginning. So when people have been focusing on maintaining their jobs, I understand that jobs are important. We've all got debts. We've all got obligations that we've got to meet. But if you're only focusing on keeping your job, you're losing sight of the big picture. You're losing sight of the long-term plan for you because you're being farmed. All your rights are being removed. But they can only be removed if you consent. They can only be removed if you agree. Now, when you go into a court of law, whether you believe in it or not doesn't matter. Where you go, you need to be aware of what they believe. That's what you need to look at because that's what's governing you. So they've got a King James Bible in there, King James Version 1611. Now in that Bible it says that when God breathed life into you, he also granted you dominion. Now people stand up about their rights, but rights can be taken away. Your dominion cannot. You are master of all that you see. You are master of the land that you live on, but not to the detriment of those that are around you. But that's what the controllers are doing. Now we know with all the hype that we've got about this so-called pandemic, that if you don't watch the television, if you don't read the newspapers, if you don't listen to the radio, you have no knowledge of a pandemic. You're not walking around people that are falling dead in the street. It's not happening. Even with the TGA numbers, you've got over in excess of a 99% chance of recovery. from something that they cannot identify. And more people need to be aware of that. Now that we've got Omicron, it sounds like we're being invaded by the Transformers. So Omicron is here, and Omicron is a variant. A variant of what? A variant of Delta, a variant of COVID-19. If COVID-19 has not been isolated and identified, which it hasn't, how can you have a variation of something that you can't identify? And then how can you have a variation of that variation? These are the things that people need to be aware of. And now we hear that people are being told to move their booster forward. We started with 2 weeks to flatten the curve. I think this has been the longest 2 weeks of my life. So where does it go next? Where it goes next is up to us. Now, we're not here to fight. I'm not here to promote people going out and putting themselves at risk. But if you sit and you do nothing, that's the biggest risk you face. But what you're doing is you're also preparing the future for your children, for your grandchildren. And if you're finding it difficult, how are they going to find it difficult? When they can't embrace each other, you can't walk too close to each other, you can't see somebody smiling, you lose that connection. We are energetic beings, and as such, we influence each other with our energy fields. They're trying to reduce that, to get it away. They don't want us together. They don't want you standing here like this. They don't want you sharing common thoughts. So I don't have an answer. If you're suffering through workplace and you want to do something about it, I'll do what I can to help you write letters. I proofread. I've been doing common law Zoom meetings for about 18 months, twice a week, Wednesdays and Thursdays. It seems to have turned into a bit of a counselling session for people, but that's okay. It's a community of people that come in and come out, and some people just stay there. But it's good where you can have a conversation with people and they understand where you're coming from. And then we look at problem solving together. So this whole problem that we have, when you turn around and you look at each other, you're looking at the answer to the problem. We are the answer to the problem. And if you can't accept that you are the answer, at some point you're going to bend over and do what you're told. And if you don't, there's going to be a special place for you. So our future, in my opinion, our future does not include the Law Society. It also does not include the doctors that are responding to a gag order from APRA. Right? Your health is far more important. Your freedom of choice, your freedom of informed choice, and you're not getting that. So my message to people, which I put myself in the focus, which, whatever, I've been doing that for a long time, even though you don't know me. Our future is defined by us and through non-compliance. As long as we comply with what they want, it will not get better. The people who tell you, just do what they say, just do what they say, then they'll stop. That's ridiculous. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. The answer is you. The answer is me. The answer is in your mirror. So enjoy the day, enjoy each other's company, use it as an opportunity to network, provide support mechanisms to people, because at some point we're going to get to where we have to protect somebody's business, where we need to be there en masse and outnumber the police that might be there to shut it down. The whole object of this is to get rid of the middle class. We only want a controlling class and a serving class, and you're part of the serving class, as long as you let them define your future. So let's us define our future, and that starts with non-compliance. Thank you.
G'day, back once again. So